Hi, I'm Tracey Soltis.
And I'm Kali Alfaro. And you're listening to the Mind Body Studio, a place for anyone who wants to reach their full potential, thrive, and create a life filled with vitality.
Each week, we'll bring you our expertise, giggles, and a splash of quirky to explore real and relevant topics to help you along your life's journey.
We'll bring you science, psychology, and practicality to real life issues.
So, thanks for listening. We know you're going to love it. All right, welcome back everybody for another episode on the Mind Body Studio. We're so excited to have you here. How you doing, Kalí?
I'm doing great. Welcome everyone. Today we are going to talk about pain and inflammation.
I know. This is a really exciting episode today because I feel like we're really going to get to the nuts and bolts of what is inflammation and how to deal with pain. So how about we kick it straight off by saying, inflammation, I guess, goes above and beyond what you can see and what you can feel. Okay, so when you think about inflammation, typically you think about an inflamed gut. So say you've eaten something that doesn't really sit well with you, and so you've got a bit of bloating and some pain, and you might have the runs, or you might feel nauseous. There's a whole range of different ways that we can experience the feeling and what we can see when we have inflammation. But that's just one area of the body that we actually tune into because it's a really uncomfortable and unpleasant experience. But I don't think many people really think about inflammation that happens in other areas of the body. So I can pretty much guarantee that if you're feeling some sort of digestive inflammation, you've got some problems in your gut, chances are that inflammation is probably extended through to the different organs. There's brain inflammation, which I know we've talked about brain health in a previous episode. But I want you to tune in and have a think about that for a second, because we are very sensory creatures. Humans are quite sensory in the fact that unless we see it and we feel it, we don't actually experience it in that way. We don't actually relate to it. And so how much brain inflammation do we have in our brain? I can guarantee you there's a lot going on there. And we don't want to have unhealthy, clogged up, plaque-ridden brains. Why is that? Well, the brain is like the central hub of all of our systems. It's the control. It's the hub of control. But not only that, it's where we have our conscious mind as well. So it's a very important organ. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. You just dived right in.
I really.
Whoever's tuning is like, whoa, classroom 101.
I know, right? Inflammation 101. Please grab a pen and a piece of paper.
So, look, hi guys. I hope you're all doing great wherever you are. And this is a really important topic because pain and inflammation are things that people can't actually see. So, and in today's world, maybe not just in today's world, maybe 200 years ago, it was the same scenario. I don't know. A lot of people suffer from pain on a regular basis, and, it can be pain in different parts of our bodies. It can be tension pain, lots of different types of pain. So it's the topic that from a psychological perspective can really ruin our mood. It can really affect our productivity. It affects our relationships, our ability to rest and perform and all sorts of things. So it's a really important topic. So now that you probably have your learning ears on because Tracey's taking you to 101 inflammation.
Well, I think it's the mood I'm in today. I'm kind of get in there. Let's get in there and let's talk about it and let's get real about it, because I think inflammation is one of those conditions that pretty much is detrimental to so many people that I see come into my clinic every single day. And it appears in so many different ways. I mean, some people feel it from fluid retention or puffiness in the eyes and the face. I mean, there's so much going on, and, there's a whole range of different causes for this as well. So I think it's important to recognize what some of those causes are. I mean, it's not just about what you're eating as well. It's about the toxins that you're putting in and on your body, you know.
In and on.
Well, look at the perfumes and the chemicals, you know, you're cleaning your house, you're like spraying chemicals around, you're breathing it into your lungs. I mean, that's got to go somewhere. No one really thinks about
and a lot
where
of
is that going.
Beauty products have
beauty products
as well,
huge
shampoos,
amount.
soaps, all sorts of things.
All of those
Sunscreen.
things. And, you know, infections. So infections as well cause an inflammatory response. Stress, we know, causes an inflammatory response, the immune system. Alcohol, poor gut health, you know, pollutants as well. I mean, we're surrounded by pollutants like all the time. So, yeah.
So we're really going to focus on like what are some of the things that you can do if you are experiencing some kind of level of pain or inflammation in your body, if you're noticing that every single time that you go into a particular meeting with some people at work, you might feel that you have tension headaches or you have a tummy upset or something like that. And then Tracey's going to run you through the more biological aspects of it and some foods as well that can also support us in the process. And I think the more empowered we are in terms of our own health and the more we start to pay attention to our bodies, the more in control we are of our well-being. And that's exactly what we're all about. It's about really feeling so much more empowered and more connected to our bodies.
Yeah, and not realizing there's a disconnect as well, because I think that there is hugely a disconnect out there in our culture where we don't really worry about anything until something bad happens. We're not actually tuning into those vital signs that the body's giving to you. It might only be a really subtle kind of communication, but a lot of people aren't picking up on those until it gets to the point of chronic pain, or it gets to the point
of, and that's what I'm going to talk about.
Totally.
How to deal with chronic pain, because so many of us, and I include myself in it, so many of us constantly struggle or manage or deal with chronic pain. And there are some really fantastic things that you can do and understand as to how the body works.
Let's talk about some of the key foods that actually cause a lot of problems. So one of them, sugar, right? Sugar. It's in everything. Processed foods, like everything from meat to hot dogs to chocolates, you name it, there's sugar in there. And we've got hidden sugars, okay? They're pretty smart in how they label stuff and ingredients into fructose. You can get malt syrups and rice syrups and, you know, all sorts of things that happen that they put in there and they change the name. And I guarantee majority of people aren't Googling, what is this ingredient, and actually seeing that it's actually a fructan, or it's a sucrose, or it's, you know, one of those products that has the same chemical experience in your body that causes toxic behavior in fat cells. So sugar is a big one. And I think to do that justice, we probably have to have a whole episode around sugar, because it's such an important topic. It causes a lot of problems in the body. The other thing is wheat. Now, when we think back to wheat, let's have a little discussion about the origins of wheat. How long ago did we actually start eating grains and wheat? It's not that long ago. It's like 10,000 years ago. I know that seems like a long time, but when you put it in an evolutionary perspective, it's actually a blink of the eye. It's such a small component of our entire existence on this planet. And so wheat typically doesn't agree with people. It's been highly processed. The way that it's actually treated now is so different to what it was when we first started eating grains and wheat. I mean, they hull them, they take out all of the vitamins, the minerals and everything. They grind it all up till it's a white powder, and then they add stuff in. Like they literally add in all the vitamins and minerals. Like you take it out, you put it back in an artificial way, in a synthetic way. So people aren't.
Not to mention all like the fertilizers and chemicals that they put in
Yes.
the growth process.
100%.
Right?
So let's look at the soils. The soils aren't what they used to be either. A lot of the minerals and nutrition that's, being ripped out of the soils because of over agriculture. Because unfortunately, when it comes to farming, even when we're changing our paddocks around and things like that, it takes a long time for the soil to actually bring itself back up to a nutritious place. So no, you've got that. And then you've got pesticides, huge amounts of pesticides that really are only starting to have a detrimental impact in the generations coming through now, because it's such a big thing in using pesticides, like crazy amounts of pesticides. I mean, we put it on our skin, right? We're scared of mozzies, so the first thing we do is we go shh, 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 all over. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I don't like getting eaten by mosquitoes either. So I'm not gonna lie. I've been one of those people. I mean, there are some alternatives, like some tree oils that you can use, but we do spray that stuff all over our skin, and as we know, that goes into our fat cells and gets stuck there. So that's why we need to go through a rhythm of ketosis to drop our inflammation, to go through fasting, to flush out all of the fat from the cells, and along with it, all of the toxins. So we've also got preservatives and additives. Oh my gosh, how many preservatives? And it sends kids crazy, like literally. Like, have you ever heard that? Where it just sends them crazy.
I've seen them.
Where they're just running around like little crazy people and they've got no self-control over anything. And, that's what's going on. We've got preservatives and additives and no one knows what they are, because on a package, they only show you a number. They go preservative, number, blah, blah, blah. Who goes and looks up what that is?
And what I want the listeners to really sort of begin to take on board is the fact that there are so many things to consider in terms of your well-being, right? And I don't want anyone to think that this is kind of information overload, or that, this is how the world is, so how are we going to deal with it? It's more about being aware of what you can actually do about it, because there are lots of things that you can do, both in terms of your diet and as well in terms of your psychological well-being. And I think it's super important to understand that there is a direct correlation between what you are consuming, not just through food, but through other chemicals that are being absorbed in the air and in your skin, with your state of mind and your mood, your level of calmness, all of that stuff. And there is a direct correlation with that when we are looking at inflammation and pain. And inflammation leads to pain. So if you are struggling with something at the minute, take notes, like really take a moment to pause on the bits of information that resonate with you and take notes, because there is a substantial amount of things that you can do to interrupt the process. And what we really are passionate about here is prevention, because you ultimately want to stop the process in its tracks so that it doesn't continue to develop into something further down the track, either physically or psychologically.
100% agree with that. I mean, it is all about prevention, because once we do get into chronic pain and disease, it is quite difficult to reverse that. I mean, obviously there are some conditions that can be reversed, but a lot of them, it does take a lot of work, because you're basically having to take back steps very slowly to reverse a condition that's already gone and kind of consumes the whole body. So when we're looking at inflammation, we need to understand that inflammation comes from an immune response. So we know that the immune system is there to basically fight foreign pathogens, to fight things that shouldn't be in the body. So if we're eating a particular food and we're having some sort of digestive unease, that should be a trigger for us to go, hang on a second, my immune system is actually having a response here, and it's actually flooding that region of the body with defense, because something is there that's not supposed to be there. And that could be anything. It could be stepping outside and having some pesticides or pollutants or something in the air, and you don't know necessarily where that inflammation is going to actually happen. It could happen at any point of the body, But it's a position where we need to take note of that, and we need to see what's happening so that we're not constantly flooding our system with an immune response, because there's only so many soldiers that we have at any one time. And it does deplete the body quite significantly of energy and away from other vital functions if we're constantly putting it in this heightened stimulated mode. So if you are having an inflammatory response, take note of that and give it the attention that it's asking you, and see what happens when you maybe start that process of elimination of certain things from your diet or on your body or in the environment, so you can really pinpoint what's happening around you.
That's a really great point. And I also want you to be aware from a psychological perspective, what kind of response or reaction are you having to noticing that your body is inflamed or in pain, right? So are you feeling frustrated every single time that you feel bloated? Are you feeling frustrated every single time that you notice that you have a tension headache, or that you're clenching your jaw, or you're holding your shoulders too tight and all shrugged up? Like, what is the actual emotional response that you are having? And I've spoken about this in lots of other episodes, and it's so incredibly important to be aware of the emotions that you are having, because those emotions will create a biochemical change in your body. So if you are having, or you're activating a response of anger and frustration and irritability and victimhood or shame or guilt as a response to something that you notice that is happening in your body, that chemical reaction will increase the muscle tension, it will increase the inflammation, and the result of that will be more pain, right? So super important, once again, to bring it back to how can you increase your awareness. What am I noticing about myself when I am faced with this sensation, right? So I'll talk a little bit later on in terms of how the body processes these sensations, but just slowing down and being in tune with yourself and understanding how am I responding to this is already going to give you something that is within your control that you can begin to shift.
That's awesome. So let's talk about some of the ways that we can deal with the pain, because I know that people listening will be like, okay, well, yes, inflammation is something that I'm suffering with daily, and yes, I need to go away and really start thinking about what is it in my environment that it is actually causing this inflammation. But until we kind of work that out, there is a period where we do have to deal with pain when those things come up. And so I guess, just on a basic level, from my perspective, it would be, thinking about the things obviously that are causing the inflammation, getting a good night's sleep, okay, because we know that at nighttime, and we've talked about this in depth so many times about how important sleep is, but we know at nighttime that this is when we're cleaning the cells. This is when we're cleaning out the body. So your body naturally goes through a process of autophagy between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. every single day. It should be. It's not for a lot of people, but that's what should be happening, is that it's actually going around, and while you're using as little ATP energy that you possibly can, it's focusing all of that energy on cells that shouldn't be there. So we're talking cancerous cells, we're talking inflammation that shouldn't be there. And I think that's pretty obvious. You go to bed, you might have inflammation, you wake up the next day and all of a sudden your tummy's not as bloated as it was. Why do you think that happens, right? It's because your body's cleaning house. That's why.
Isn't the body amazing?
It's
like,
so
let's
amazing.
Just stop and like celebrate this amazing like body that we walk in every day, right? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's a vessel. It's a vessel to hold our journey.
And it's constantly doing all of this stuff behind the scenes that we're not even aware of. Like, it's fascinating.
It's so fascinating.
Stop and think about it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating.
It's super fascinating. That's why I do what I do, because I love it so much. Because
you're a nerd.
That's
why you do it.
I do. And I love it. And I love teaching people about their bodies, because very, very few people actually turn inward to understand what's happening in their body. The other thing that I really want to pinpoint on, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to talk about this as well, is breath. So breath work. So as uncomfortable as it is when we go through periods and bouts of pain, if we clench up and if we go through periods where we're stressed and we're clenching up the muscles and we're tightening our body, we can make the pain worse. And as uncomfortable as it is, sometimes it's better to actually breathe into the pain, to acknowledge the pain, to welcome the pain. I know that sounds really weird, but it's an opportunity for us to actually analyze and go with the body rather than fighting against it. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think that's something that's definitely part of what I'm going to explore a little bit further, and that is the understanding that tension has a massive role to play in inflammation and pain. And the reason behind that is because when we are tense, oxygen is not flowing easily through the body. So allowing yourself to tune in and focusing on your breath and taking in deep belly breaths or diaphragmatic breathing for a period of time can allow the flow of oxygen to be more efficient to the body. And when we have an area that is inflamed or in recovery, we need more oxygen. And on the same token, we need to be very well hydrated for that same reason. So absolutely. And what Tracey says in terms of going into the pain, this forms part of the relationship that we are having with our bodies. So I often hear people say to me, oh my gosh, I just hate my body so much. My knees are always clicking out and I'm always in pain and I can't ever do all the stuff that I wanted to do before. And there's so much anger, so much frustration. And I can just visualize like all these chemicals being secreted and flooding the person's body as they're talking, which is making the pain worse. So no, we don't like, to feel that our bodies are so-called failing us. But how many times a day do you actually stop and actually thank your body?
We just push it, right? Push it
and expect it to work.
Yeah.
And then when it breaks down, we get pissed off about it,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, totally.
So this is about having an awareness of what kind of relationship are you having with yourself. Your body is part of who you are, right? So when I often get people to think about if there is like a painful part of the body, think about it as like a child part of yours. If there is a child that is hungry and tired, it's going to be chucking a tantrum. And when that pain comes up, it's sort of like that part of you is chucking a tantrum. So we don't just punish the child and put it in a cold room with no food and oxygen and water. Mm-hmm. We coddle the child. We really allow ourselves to really soothe and love and reassure.
And see what they need.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so this is about tuning into the parts of your body that are holding pain, tuning into the emotions that are being triggered and using your breath to transform them, to transmute them, to get it out. And breathing is one of the most efficient ways of the body getting rid of toxins as well. Mm-hmm. So you're not only doing something psychologically, but physically. And then you go into this beautiful synchronized harmony and, you're in there. And that's where we want you to be.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about some of the fun stuff, like what can you eat that's going to help with inflammation? So I think the number one thing is to keep it simple. Always keep it simple, okay? Processed foods, if you can't read the label and you don't know what's in it and you have to Google preservatives and ingredients, chances are you probably aren't supposed to eat it, right? So we want to keep our diets simple. We want to go back to basics. And so what does that look like? No processed foods, okay? Look, when people come into my clinic, I say we're not restrict dieting. We can enjoy life and we can experience life, but everything in moderation, right? We don't want to just be consuming processed foods every single meal, every single day of the week, because that's going to have a seriously detrimental impact on our health because it puts in all the pollutants with that food. So vegetables, yes. What were you going to say?
That means, like, for some people that are listening, that means look at your food and can you identify what it is?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you actually tell like the origin of the food, or is it so processed that you actually don't know how it got to that state?
Yeah, that's the thing that's kind of worrying me at the moment with some of the plant-based foods. So, the vegan, vegetarian alternatives to meat. And so they've got so many different things in them.
Absolutely.
Like you go simple, like eat your vegetables, eat your fruit, eat
organic tofu.
Exactly.
Right? Which is just soybeans that have been processed.
100%.
And they're organic and non-GMO.
Totally. But if you pick up the packet of something that's plant-based and it's got 30 different ingredients in it and you can't read some of them, like what is actually in that food?
And the same goes for anything that's highly processed.
Yeah,
processed
100%.
biscuits and, processed meats and all of that stuff
100%.
that's really high in fats, really high in salts and sometimes sugars as well.
Yeah.
So we want you to go back to identifying, can you actually identify the food?
Yeah.
And is it actually fresh? Is it food that is going to ultimately rot? You want that because it means that it's fresh. It's not filled with preservatives.
How many steps has it gone from the farm to your plate? That's another good one as well, right? Yeah. So how many steps has this actual individual...
Go to farmers markets, right? Support local small business and go to farmers market and actually get produce that is probably less interfered with in terms of pesticides and going through 50 billion different people and...
Packaging.
Exactly.
Oh, my gosh, the packaging is out of control, the plastics. But we'll talk about that again another day. So green leafy vegetables, okay, I can't tell you how important it is to get your quantity of green leafy vegetables and range of different types of meat. So wild caught fish, grass-fed beef and, lamb and things like that. Really important. Again, we're going back to that ideology of how many steps has it taken to get to your plate. Healthy fats. I mean, we need all of the healthy fats. Our brain is a big blob of fat. That's what it is. So it needs fat in there. Coconut oils, avocado, butter, ghee, all of those things. I mean, start working out what you can change and how you can transition so that you can have more vitality, less inflammation, live longer, feel good, and, really thrive as an individual person. So it doesn't mean that just because you have access to all of the foods that you have to eat all of the foods.
Are there a couple of foods, Tracey? I know a couple, but I want them to come from you.
Yeah.
Are there a couple of foods that have a targeted anti-inflammatory reaction in the body that really help? Like I know that turmeric.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And so can you tell us why?
It's actually the curcumin. So it's actually the color of that.
In Spanish we say curcuma.
Curcumin.
Curcuma.
Curcumin.
Say it one more time.
Curcumin. Is that it?
Curcuma.
No. So it's the orange color that you see in the turmeric. So that's actually the anti-inflammatory right there. Okay, so if you do suffer with some bouts of inflammation, then I'd be going for that. Also, on a side note, activated charcoal. Activated charcoal is actually a really good product if you're having any digestive issues as well. So maybe check that out. But again, keeping the basics, okay, that's key because everyone can have different reactions to different foods. So I can't specifically say that this particular food is always going to work for every single person because it doesn't. But anything like activated charcoal, because that's a very natural organic, you can find lots of natural organic activated charcoals. I'd be maybe having a look at that and see if that works for you because that's a pretty good remedy to have at home if you do have bouts of inflammation and you are having problems with your gut.
That's really great. Thanks for that.
So, wow, 29 minutes already. I think we have to – no, we've got more things to say. So, yeah, you take it away, lady.
So I really want people with chronic pain to pay attention for a little bit in terms of some of the things that you need to understand in terms of how your body is responding. So when you have the experience of pain, there are signals filling up nerve cells that are going up into your body and your body is processing that experience as pain, right? And those signals have a frequency and a speed, right? So the cell gets filled up with, let's say, 5 signals, and then it goes up into the brain. And if that signal is not interrupted, the brain is going to continue to process that experience as pain. So a couple of things that interrupt the signals that actually travel at a much faster speed than chronic pain, not acute pain, chronic pain. And when I say chronic pain, this is anything that has been lingering around for more than 12 weeks, right? So if you've just had an operation and you're in pain, that's acute pain. Anything after 12 weeks of something happening, that is chronic pain. So if you're experiencing chronic pain, let's say in your shoulder, and the pain is dull or it's sharp or it feels hot, think about it. When we look at, say, like cricket players, and they get hit by a ball on the chest, the first thing they do is they touch their chest and they're like, oh man, that really hurt, right? Mm-hmm. And what you're doing, it's like a reflex, because what you're doing is they're touching their chest, and by touching your skin in that moment, you are actually making the brain process touch and pain. So you are beginning to feel that nerve cell with a different signal, and touch travels quicker than chronic pain, right? And then imagine the cricketer begins to rub that part, and then you begin to feel heat, right? Once again, heat travels quicker than chronic pain. So now what you're having is you're beginning to feel that nerve cell, let's say with 1 unit of pain, 2 units of touch, and then 2 units of heat. So you're still processing pain, but the perception of it is now reduced because you're interrupting it with another sensation, right?
Yeah, I love that.
So this is one of the reasons why things like massage and heat packs and even like cold therapy, all of these things are interrupting the neural pathways. And if you add breath work into that, or like meditation music, or even self-affirmation, I love my body and I'm sending my body love, and, you know, this shoulder is healing more and more every day, and you're really taking control, you are actually creating this beautiful environmental chemical change in your mind and in your body, and you're strengthening that internal relationship that you have to your body. So just think about it for a second. If you begin to do this as a response to your body, and you also begin to take on a more proactive approach in terms of really figuring out what are you eating, what are you exposing yourself to, taking on some natural remedies like turmeric or charcoal or anything else out there that might be an anti-inflammatory food source, and you begin to look at the situations in your life that are causing stress, and you begin to either eliminate or reduce them, or do more meditation and breath work, you start getting on top of it. And when you start getting on top of it, it's so incredibly important because it gives you a sense of control. And when it gives you a sense of control, you begin to feel calmer in your body. By feeling calmer, you actually reduce the tension and you begin to lower that sense of pain.
I love that. I think that's great. And I feel like we've really covered a lot from the biological aspect and the mental health and psychological aspect as well. So do you feel like that's a great place to wrap it up?
I feel like that's a wonderful place, and I really hope our listeners have taken some really valuable tips and skills from this. Once again, we're all about prevention. We're all about self-awareness and taking control, like up your game, like be more responsible for what you are doing and the type of relationship you're having with your body, because that affects everyone else.
100%. And so I just want to say, if you're enjoying our podcast and you're enjoying our episodes and you're finding it a little bit hilarious and informative, please make sure you share this with your family and friends, because we really want to get these messages out to people. We want to help as many people as we can. So please feel free to tag and share people in those episodes. And if you like what you're hearing, maybe you can leave us a really fancy review because we would love that too. Because
send us comments.
Yes, please.
Say hi.
That would be
we love getting the emails that we're getting from all of these beautiful listeners.
Yes.
It really does make our day. So reach out. We're just pouring our hearts and souls out for you guys. And we love all of the beautiful feedback. So keep it coming.
Yay. All right, guys. We'll catch you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The information, views and opinions expressed on this podcast should not be used or treated as a substitute for nutritional, medical, psychological or other advice by a qualified health professional. Hosts and guests on the podcast express their own opinions, experiences and conclusions. Nothing in the podcast should be used to diagnose, treat, cure or prevent any medical condition. The podcast is not intended to replace any medical or mental health treatment. All information and advice provided is for general well-being and does not take individual cases into consideration. Neither Tracey Saltis, Kali Alfaro or any sponsor endorse the opinions, views or conclusions expressed or shared on the podcast. Tracey Saltis and Kali Alfaro take no responsibility for any symptoms or consequences as a direct or indirect result of the podcast.